to celebrate our announcement, we are bringing on one of the best, most impactful voices on this matter in the game. And that is Casey Pratt, who works for ABC7 and is out there in Oakland seeing what's going on a daily basis. And I love the shirt. Casey, great to have you on. And first off, dude, I'm excited to meet you in person. What can you tell us about Fans Fest and your involvement coming up? And can you just explain it even better than I just did?
Yeah, you did a great job, actually. But what it is this happened in the past as well, where the A's just flat out neglected to throw their own Fan Fest. So the Oakland 68's last dive bar stepped up and threw their own. They did this a couple of years ago at Brooklyn Basin on the waterfront. It was spectacular. This is way, way bigger. It's Jack London Square. Like you said, lots of former A's in attendance too. And look, this isn't like a let's all get together and hate the A's fest. It's an Oakland fans fest. It's about Oakland fans. Former A's like Coco Christ, Grant Balfour, Trevor May, who recently retired, will be there. JT Snow, one of AJ Przinsky's former teammates, I believe, will be there with the Oakland Ballers, the Oakland Roots. I mean, this is all about the fans. It's free. It's for the people. And, of course, you guys will be there, too.
Yeah, wait, JT Snow, he was a Giant. How was he invited to the fan? That doesn't make any sense.
JT Snow is bench coach of the Ballers now, man. He's going to be there, too.
Oh, okay.
Can you tell us a bit about the Ballers, too, as there's been a lot of news surrounding them? And it's Don Wakamatsu as the manager, right?
He's actually tippity top. He's above GM. He's like helping advise the whole thing. So Don Wakamatsu is one of the leading voices on this. But the Ballers are basically a startup baseball team. They saw what was happening in Oakland and just could not stand it. So they created their own Pioneer League franchise to come and at least give baseball back to Oakland. I know people say Pioneer League, oh, big deal. We're losing Major League Baseball. That's terrible. But I think what a lot of people don't realize is the void the A's have already left in the community, Little League, youth baseball, all these things. The Ballers are stepping up and filling that void. So it's really like a community-driven team. Obviously, it's a, independent Pioneer League baseball team that will play games and get everybody together. But I think at the grassroots level, it's such a cool thing that they're doing. So lots of good stuff going on there. Like I said, JT Snow is bench coach of that team. There's a lot of excitement around the Ballers right now out here.
What is the schedule of events for this? I was invited. Unfortunately, sadly, I can't make it. But what is the schedule of events? I mean, they're having this in downtown Oakland, if I'm not mistaken, right? And what are they going to have people? They're speaking, signing autographs. What's the? Give me the rundown here.
Yeah, all of that. Okay, so there's a nightclub right on the waterfront. That's where the main stage is going to be. Outside, there's going to be another big stage. I'll be MC, so I'll be talking to the people like Coco and Trevor May and Grant Balfour and even the Oakland mayor, like you said. So there will be an indoor and outdoor stage, live music, tons of booths where fans can meet, get autographs, get introduced to these new teams like the Ballers. The Oakland Roots are going to drop their new kit at Fans Fest. So there's a ton of stuff going on, and it's free to attend. So in the past, the A's have actually done their own Fan Fest at Jack London Square. It's this big outdoor area right on the water. It's beautiful. So it's going to be a great area for everyone to walk around. And also, hilariously, it's where the A's team offices are located. So they'll probably be looking out the window wistfully, looking at the event, because I know none of the A's employees or front office are allowed by the A's to attend. I've told them they should show up, though, but I don't think they're allowed to.
Love that. Okay, let's get to some news too. Yeah, I would be surprised if someone showed up from the A's. We'd see what happened.
Cool if like the front office showed
up.
Guys. Billy Beane shows up.
Yeah, he might be popular there.
Billy Beane has made tons of money. He's a nice guy. But my thing is, like, if he shows up, what are you going to do? You're going to fire him?
Exactly. That's my point.
Like, come on.
That's my point. They made a crappy movie about him.
If you think about it too, I mean, his livelihood, right, has been supported by the people that are all going to be here. So, if I was him, I would go. It's not like he's fresh into the game and, I don't want to piss anyone off. Like, he should go. You're right.
He is, though, a special advisor to John Fisher, so I don't know how that will go.
Yeah, I don't think he's going
to go. No, I know. I'm saying, politically, he's not going to go.
He likes his parking spot. On this, you guys. He gets a pass a lot on this, but he's in there.
But his boss sucks. So, Casey, let's go over that, because news just came out in the past 24 hours that the A's are going to chat with city officials about maybe hanging out for a few extra years before they do their ditch over to Vegas in 2028. So what do you know about this story? And I think what I'm sensing is, from the A's community that I interact with, they feel like they might get aggressive, the A's, with the city, and they're worried that the city is going to give in to allow them to play there, and they shouldn't. What do you think?
Yeah, there's a lot more going on this than people realize. I tweeted that yesterday and everybody freaked out. My phone blew up. Look, the A's are gone after 2024. Their lease expires. The city has no reason to grant them amnesty and save them. They're at this point now where they're a nomadic team from 25, 26, 27 until maybe they have a ballpark in 28. They've been looking at Sacramento. They've been looking at Salt Lake City. They have nowhere to play baseball. And if they leave Oakland, I know a lot of people probably don't follow this very closely that watch, but if they leave Oakland, they lose $70 million a year if they leave the Bay Area. So they have every incentive to stay. Even Sacramento would void that deal. So they have to stay here or they lose $70 million a year. That's the backdrop in which they're going to walk to the table with the city of Oakland, a table that they unceremoniously flipped over when they decided to leave negotiations upright and go to Las Vegas. The city already has a tenant ready to play sports in the Coliseum in 2025. I'm going to break that thing a little bit later in the week, but they already have that. So this is where it gets crazy, you guys. And tell me if I'm throwing too many, coals into the fire here, but the A's deal with the Coliseum is actually not very good for the city of Oakland. They're paying like $1.25 million up to $1.5 million a year in rent. If anybody else does a special event or plays at the Coliseum, the city gets all the parking, concessions, and a share of the tickets. For the A's, they just get that flat fee. And so it's actually far more lucrative for them to have special events, other teams, anybody else come in there and play than the A's. So the A's now have to walk in and ask for the city's forgiveness on Thursday, and that's going to be an interesting meeting.
I hate it that you said you're going to drop it later because I want to know who's actually playing there because then it also tells me like how much would they be willing to let the A's have it for? If they're paying 1.2 to 1.5 million, you could essentially say, well, you can rent it for the year for $10 million because they know what kind of revenue they're going to bring in if it's not the A's, and it's clearly not just it's not a beer league softball team that's coming into play there.
Yeah, so the city can say, here's what we want, right? We want a crap ton of money. Like, you're going to have to pay us a fortune if you want to play here and keep that $70 million a year. Or they could say, we want to keep the name and colors of the A's in Oakland. You go to Vegas, whatever, but we're keeping the A's here. Or they could say, we want an expansion team or some promises of an expansion team. Or they could say, John Fisher, you own the half of the Coliseum site that the county sold you. We want you to give that up at fair market value and get off our land so we can at least develop this 100 plus acres. So they have a lot to ask for on the city side. We'll see how much the A's are willing to give up.
You kind of brought up a bunch of different stuff. Is there a chance MLB steps in with this? Because as of last week, Rob Manfred kind of sounded annoyed by what was going on with the whole, hey, we don't have a place to play, but Nito, it's going to be awesome in Vegas. Like, is there a chance MLB steps in?
Yeah, I think MLB has already stepped in, and you saw the unanimous vote. I think the silence from the A side tells you a lot. I think Major League Baseball is doing everything they can to push this along. I think the power players in Vegas, some of them at least, are doing everything they can to push this along. The A's are really at this point succeeding in spite of themselves, because if you saw what they did in Oakland, I mean, they tried Fremont, they tried San Jose, they failed at multiple sites in Oakland. They've yet to get a deal done anywhere. And so I think all these different groups are now stepping in, trying to save this deal, where it would be so much easier just to say, sell the team. Just sell the team. Get somebody in here that actually wants to stay. And then maybe in 2028, if you get Vegas figured out, go ahead and make that the first expansion team.
In Casey, in my mind, the city should just start with, we get A's and we get an expansion team, or you don't get this. Period. That's how it should start. Because, I mean, Joe Lacob's a good example, right? I mean, you can talk more about him, the Warriors owner, and how he's made multiple public comments that he would buy the team for a fair market price and actually do what should be done with the new site and building around it. And he even said, of course, hey, we're billionaires. We can afford this ourselves. I'll just fund the thing.
Yeah, well, Lacob has made it public he wants the team. He can't say too much, though, because if you piss off baseball, you're never going to get a franchise. You remember, he thought he was going to get the A's already when he was passed over for Lou Wolf, the frat buddy of Bud Selig. So, I mean, this whole thing has been kind of ripe with disaster from the jump. I think a lot of the reason that we're in the situation we're in out here is because of what Bug Selig did, forcing the team to his frat buddy instead of Reggie Jackson's group or a Joe Lacob group, which probably would have been a heck of a lot better. Reggie himself said he had an offer where it was basically like, take any offer and I will put it higher than that offer. And he still didn't get the team because obviously he gave it to Lou Wolf.
I mean, I want to hear from someone that's out there on the ground. What are the chances the A's actually end up in Vegas? Because we keep having guests on there like there are still a lot of obstacles. There are still a lot of roadblocks. There's no stadium renderings. I mean, Fisher hasn't put out anything. I mean, heck, the Royals have put out renderings. The White Sox, who don't even have anywhere really to go, they've already put out renderings from a new stadium they want. And yet the A's have done nothing. So what are the chances that this doesn't happen? And the A's are like, I mean, I would love to see it because it would make me laugh so hard. Like Pratt said, they basically crawl back to Oakland and beg them to keep them. And Oakland's like, yeah, sorry, go kick rocks.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I'm on the ground here in Oakland, but I also spent the entire last week in Las Vegas covering the 49ers for the Super Bowl. So I spent a lot of time walking around the Tropicana, talking to all the big journalists out there in Vegas. And it's funny because I would really put it at like a 75% chance they end up in Vegas. The people that are most dialed in the Vegas scene all told me 50-50. That was the number they gave me. They don't believe the hype in the A's out there. I think the only thing that really got me is like when you walk around Las Vegas and look at the Tropicana site, first of all, it's tiny. Second of all, they said they're going to have a retractable roof. Now it looks pretty certain they will not. And then they're going to have a bunch of developments around the ballpark that Bally's is building. What I noticed about the site is it's very congested. The cabbies, everyone you ask out there, said it's a terrible place for a ballpark. It's going to be impossible to get to. The local residents don't want it on the Strip, and that's exactly where it is. So there's a lot of boxes it doesn't check, and all we have seen are fake drawings the team themselves said wad up and throw away. We've never even seen the real ones. But the thing that struck me the most is if you stand on the site and you just look around, every property around that site is owned by MGM. So you better believe MGM wants that stadium there because they don't have to do anything, and then they get to benefit from it being there. And MGM's a big-time power player in Vegas, so I give them some credit for that. But, yeah, there is basically zero answers out there. They don't have financing. They don't have renderings. It's kind of a mess. Even when we were there for Super Bowl week, the Las Vegas mayor stepped up and said they should stay in Oakland and build on the waterfront, which made massive headlines. Like, the Super Bowl is in Vegas. The eyes of the entire world are upon Vegas. Where were the A's? They weren't there at all. They didn't even make a post on social media about Vegas and the world stage being there. So it really seems like silence is deafening at this point for them out there.
Scott's shirt says sell. You mentioned sell like 3 or 4 times already. What are the chances that John Fisher actually sells, and what does that look like? What does the A's name, at what kind of value does the A's actually have if it were to be sold?
Yeah, I mean, he stands to make well over $1 billion if this team sold, you guys. He bought it for like $180 million. He didn't buy it for a lot. It's going to be over $1 billion in a sale at least. So he can say to everybody around, look, I inherited billions of dollars. I'm a billionaire because I was born wealthy. But look, I made this $1 billion myself. He can do that if he sells the A's. And he could still probably expand to Vegas using that money. And you could have a guy like Joe Lacob, who just tried to acquire LeBron James at the trade deadline. This dude is out to win. I cannot understand why Major League Baseball wouldn't want that above everything else. You could win in Vegas and Oakland if you just do this right, but I'm not sure that Rob Manfred has the creativity to get that done.
I agree with 99% of what you said. The only thing I'll disagree with, there's one thing in the entire 15 minutes we've had, Casey. If John Fisher gets rich off selling the A's, which he would, or richer on his own-ish, obviously, he was born on third base and can't get home. Born on third base, hit a triple, can't get home. Anyway, MLB would not let him back in. So if he wanted to be part of a new expansion situation, this dude is a disaster. It is embarrassing
but he's done
to
a
the
lot
league.
Of work. Like, he's gotten it this far, right? And they haven't kicked him out yet. If they hated him that much,
you can't kick him out. That's the whole thing. We've talked to we've talked to fans all the time. Almost every time we bring up the A's, fans go, well, why don't they just kick him out? You can't do that. There's no precedent for that.
You can't just kick a guy out.
No.
Yeah,
there's zero precedent for that. It is his business. He hasn't done anything, quote, illegal, although he's kind of paying off politicians, but that's a whole nother story. But you can't kick him out. But what you can do is prevent him from ever coming back. MLB just dealt with a somewhat similar situation, not as dire, but John Angelos, son of a billionaire, is not qualified to run a baseball team, needs to just take his money and run. He just did that. There is no chance MLB would ever let him touch the league again. These are poisonous people to the sport. They're not stupid. You know, we can be critical as much as we want, but the league still wants baseball to be successful in terms of a profitable, well-liked business. These guys are so bad for the game. There's no way they would ever let him back. So take your billions, go into waste management. It's a much easier way to make tons of money and act like the trash can that you are, John. Go ahead.
Okay, now that you're done, thank you for your soapbox. I love it. My only question is, you said something and it still makes me go, man, well, that's weird. You said it was because at one time they were talking about a retractable roof. Now, I know Vegas gets really hot in the summer, but it's also really nice at certain times of year. So are they going no roof, which can't happen, or they're going to go full dome? So I'm assuming the retractable roof wouldn't happen because it costs $100 million more that they don't have, that Fisher doesn't have?
Yeah, so the retractable roof would probably be at least $150 million more. Obviously, money, financing is already an issue. Furthermore, it's 9 acres. It would be one of the tiniest ballparks in all of baseball. You need room for the retractable roof to open and close, which is why I don't think we're ever going to see a retractable roof on that site. Like I said, I walked around that site. It is very, very small. When I walk around Howard Terminal in Oakland, you guys, it's 55 acres, and that feels tiny. 9 acres is miniature. So I think this is going to be a fixed roof stadium. Then it calls into question, what does that mean for the turf, the grass? How are they going to do that? Like at Allegiant Stadium, there's a whole field tray that slides in and out of the stadium so they can grow the grass outside. I don't know if you can do that on 9 acres. I don't see how in the world you'd have room for that. So at the best possible scenario, they'd probably have a window that shows the strip, and I don't think that really does a whole lot, which is probably why you're not seeing any renderings, because they have not put out any real ones.
It's going to be a 5,000 seat stadium.
Dude, this is the more we talk about this, honestly, the more we talk about this, the bigger joke it becomes. Like if you're going to do this, right? If you're going to move a team, most of the time, like whenever this hasn't really happened in forever, right?
Nationals,
right? But they had a plan in place where they're like, we're going to have to go to RFK for a couple years, and then we're going to build this awesome new ballpark. This seems like it's just like they're literally just like throwing shit at a wall and seeing what sticks. Like, oh, let's try this. Oh, this Tropicana 9 acre. We can make it fit on 9 acres. But
dude, this is like when I bring my carry-on on a flight and it doesn't fit, and you're just smashing it in, and you're like, come on, I know a ballpark can fit in here. Come on.
Like Ben Stiller and Meet the Parents. Sir, that's not going to fit. You need to check. I'm throwing the check into the bags.
That's
I mean, it's a lot like that. The issue is, if that's the case, I've offered the A's so many times. I've offered them so many opportunities to explain this all to me. Let's just sit down. Just tell me your plan. If the wrong information is out there, give me the right information. I've told them over and over again, I don't care if people get mad at me. If the truth is the truth, let's put the truth out there. And they never do. What does that tell you?
No, it's just so shady. It's so scummy the way this is handled and the way this is talked about publicly, because it barely ever is, besides that. But again, if you're going to
do it right. Like, I'm fine.
That's what I'm saying.
If they wanted to do it right, and they were like, okay, we're going to do. It's kind of like when the A's, when Al Davis came back with the Raiders, and he put that horrific thing in Mount Davis in center field, right? Like, it ruined that whole ballpark. So again, it wasn't done right. It was just right. Let's just hurry up and do this because we need it, right? Well, if you're going to take a team and move them somewhere, at least there should have been so much more of a plan. Like, we're going to do this, and we're going to move here. We're going to, do whatever it takes. And then we're going to build this awesome new stadium where people are like, holy shit. Because, like, when you go to these new stadiums now, you look around, you're like, holy shit, these are really amazing. You see the renderings of the Royals. You're like, damn, that's cool. Like, it looks out over the downtown skyline. You're like, oh, and Chicago's new one. You're like, damn, that's amazing. And the A's, he said they're going to have a window where you might be able to, like, come on. Like, that's why you need.
They're building a prison. No, John Fisher couldn't open a lemonade stand, dude. This is just not the kind of person that can get something like this done. You have to be a pioneer when you're expanding into a new city like this. This is the worst person you could pick on the planet to be able to set up something like this. He can't get a deal done. So anyway, we're going to talk about this, but we're also going to have some fun out there. Casey, I'm excited to meet in person. And like you mentioned, also just celebrate the history of the A's, the impact that this team makes in the community. I'll talk more about this when I'm out there, but when we had Dave Stewart on one of our shows, he mentioned how Reggie Jackson was getting him into the ballpark and ended up being a mentor for him. And I mean, there are so many cool stories about how the A's have impacted the lives of people that are involved in baseball. But I mean, Dave stands out for me because then he's become an executive, all that, right? Like if the A's don't exist, we don't have a Dave Stewart in our game. That's just one of a billion examples we'll go over. So I'm excited to talk about some of that as well. And that also plays to why baseball belongs in that community.
Yeah, Ricky Henderson's another great example. I mean, Kurt Flood. There's so many. I mean, the history of baseball in Oakland is rich even before the A's. So I think there's a lot of great stories to tell. And that's kind of what Fans Fest shout out is to celebrate. It's to celebrate the Oakland fans, the Oakland community. It's not just the A's. I mean, there's so much more to it. And I think that you'll find that out a lot more when you're out there. I can't wait to see you guys out there. I'm excited that you're coming out. And I'll be MC on stage doing a bunch of things, but I will also hop on the show with you guys. And, this is kind of funny. I have a really nice home studio setup. It was just not working for your show. So check us out. I actually had to take a baseball and wedge it in my laptop to get my mobile phone kit set up here just for you guys. So I've been holding this baseball for like 15 minutes just for you.
Well, dude, you crushed it. We didn't notice it.
I'm so tired now. His arm is so tired.
I know, I feel like I've pitched 9 innings at this point.
Dude, you crushed it. Because if we tried to get John Fisher on, we would just have a blank screen and no audio. So, dude can't even do a Zoom call.
I've been talking to him. I'm trying to sit down with the man. Let's get this going. Come on.
For people that haven't seen, watch the YouTube clip of him speaking in Vegas. That's the whole clip where then they ask for people to cheer and no one does. But the actual speaking from him is like mind blown on how bad it is. So anyway, plus he mentions how he's a Giants fan. Sneaks
Think
that
about
in there
Kevin
as well.
from The Office. I think that's kind of the cadence we have going on.
Hey, we had him on yesterday. Don't make fun of Kevin Malone.
We literally had him on yesterday. Wait, Casey, last thing.
Yeah.
Casey, he actually shouted you out. I swear to God.
I gotta go back and listen. I love to show you guys, but I actually slept almost all day yesterday because I was in Vegas for an entire week covering the Super Bowl. So I got home and I slept like all day.
Dude, well, you missed Brian Bumgarner, who is Kevin in The Office. We showed the meme of the chili being spilled and talking about the off season in the Bay Area. And he said, "Oh, tell Casey Pratt that was good."
Dope, dude. I love that. And I think that he needs to do a cameo or at least a voice impersonation of John Fisher for Fans Fest. That would be the coolest thing ever.
He's got a cameo.
He's got cameo. I mean,
go check it out. What is it? $100?
It's like $50.
$50. Let's do it.
Oh, that's money well spent, boys.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Casey, great to talk to you here. We'll see you out in Oakland. All right.
All right. I'll bring this baseball. I'll autograph it for you.
Thank you. Please.
Thanks.
I'll bring it back to AJ. Appreciate you, man. And
one more look. Guys.